I want to invite you into a space that probably feels incredibly safe to you right now, but is actually deeply, deeply fragile. Let's dive straight into a terrifying breakdown of identity, maternal paranoia, and the total, catastrophic collapse of reality. Today we are stripping away the cozy comforts of the modern home and entering a profoundly suffocating psychological nightmare. I'm going to meticulously unravel how a story can take the absolute purest relationship imaginable, the bond between a mother and her child, and twist it into an instrument of pure, unadulterated dread. And the craziest part? The tension here doesn't wait for the sun to go down. It starts building the very second we step foot inside the house.
Sometimes she's there. Sometimes she's not. I want you to just let those words hang in the air for a moment. Really think about them. This isn't a statement about a ghost or an imaginary friend living in a closet. This is a statement spoken by a child about her own mother, or rather, a version of her mother. Immediately, we are slammed with a shifting reality. It's the horrifying realization that the very foundation of trust in a home, literally knowing who your parents are, recognizing the people who raised you, has been entirely compromised. We're dealing with a home invasion here, but one that doesn't just breach the walls of a house. It actively breaches the concept of identity itself.
Act 1. The unsettling lunch break. Let's look at this quiet disruption.
So, it's the middle of the day. The mother comes home for a surprise lunch break. The house is completely quiet. The father is asleep in his office, and the mother decides, let's just let him rest. Now pay close attention to this setup, because it isolates the mother and her young daughter Bella, establishing a deeply quiet domestic environment. On the surface, this is the ultimate illusion of normalcy, right? But a perfectly normal family moment is being used here to plant the very first incredibly subtle seeds of psychological unease. By removing the father from the equation and keeping him asleep, we isolate our two main subjects. There are no other witnesses to what is about to unfold. It's just the mother, the daughter, and the heavy, quiet walls of their home acting as a psychological pressure cooker. Notice how quickly that normalcy shatters through a seemingly innocent conversation about food. The mother cheerfully suggests cookie dough ice cream for lunch, but then she corrects herself, wanting to be a good mother, and pivots to scrambled eggs. But Bella casually points out they already had scrambled eggs for breakfast. The mother just freezes. She says, "That's right, I forgot." She then rapidly shifts to suggesting pasta instead. We absolutely have to track this disjointed memory lapse. Forgetting what you literally just fed your child a few hours prior isn't a standard everyday slip of the mind. It reveals that something is fundamentally, terrifyingly wrong with her connection to recent lived events. The continuity of her own life has just been broken.
So, why would a mother forget breakfast? Let's slow down for a second and really explore the immense psychological weight of this memory failure. This isn't just about eggs. It's about presence. It's about reality. If she doesn't remember breakfast, was she really there, or was someone else? This seemingly tiny memory lapse completely shatters the illusion of safety we just established. It introduces the horrifying creeping possibility that the woman currently standing in the kitchen might not actually possess the memories of the woman who was there that morning. The timeline of her own reality is splintering right in front of her child.
Act 2. A sinister conversation. The blurring of identity.
Take a close look at this quote. Sometimes I think about when you and I were one person. On a surface level, sure, a mother speaking about pregnancy is beautiful and entirely natural, but she is deliberately introducing the concept of shared identity here. She is starting to blur the lines between where she ends and where Bella begins. By bringing up the time they were literally one person, she unknowingly opens the door for the terrifying subtext that is about to follow. She is planting the idea that identity isn't a fixed, solid thing. She's suggesting that boundaries between bodies and minds can be crossed and potentially entirely erased. The progression in this conversation is brilliant. They move from the physical, biological reality of the baby being in the tummy all the way to the abstract, emotional concept of the child being in the mother's heart. The mother asks Bella if she remembers where she was before the tummy and tells her, "You were in my heart." Now, it's meant to be a comforting, sweet metaphor, but in the psychological thriller narrative like this, abstract concepts rarely stay abstract for long. Metaphors become incredibly dangerous when the very fabric of reality is starting to tear at the seams.
Can I go into your heart? The mother has just offered this poetic, lovely metaphor. But Bella, with the stark, unfiltered literal logic of a child, asks for permission to physically enact it. I really want you to think about the sheer terror of this moment. A child taking a comforting metaphor completely literally and twisting it into a physical, invasive threat against her own mother. To actually go into the mother's heart means to tear her open. It signifies a terrifying regression, a complete, violent loss of the mother's bodily autonomy.
What started as a tender bonding moment has rapidly spiraled into a request for a horrific physical invasion, and it's delivered in the sweet, innocent, deadpan voice of a little girl. I ask you to consider the horrifying implications of this dynamic. What actually happens when a metaphor becomes a physical threat? We are seeing childhood logic, which inherently doesn't understand complex boundaries or figures of speech, used to build intense, inescapable dread. The mother is desperately trying to connect emotionally, but the environment around her is reflecting back a predatory, consuming literalism. The safety of language itself has broken down here, turning sweet material assurances into physical, violent threats.
And then the unseen danger starts manifesting in their actual physical space. There's a sudden, massive spike in tension when the mother confronts Bela. She says, "You said you won't leave my room." Bela's response, "You seemed lonely." This is the exact moment the dread completely solidifies. Bela is responding to a version of her mother that the real mother has absolutely no memory of being. The mother wasn't in the room, so who did Bela see? Who seemed lonely? The physical space of the home is no longer exclusively theirs. We now know for sure that they are sharing the house with a ghost that is wearing the mother's face.
Act 3, the smoke alarm triggers. And we move into physical chaos.
I want you to imagine the quiet, eerie tension we've built up so far. It's silent, it's unsettling. And then suddenly ominous music creeps in. Then the aggressive, violent sound of water boiling loudly on the stove out of nowhere. And then a smoke alarm blaring, piercing through the quiet domestic scene. It utterly shatters the atmosphere. The quiet, creeping psychological dread we've been sitting in is instantly replaced by blaring, aggressive physical danger. The threat is no longer confined to strange dialogue or forgotten memories. It is actively burning right there in the kitchen.
Amidst this sudden chaos, the mother screams, "Whoa! What were you cooking?" The panic here is palpable. The mother has totally lost control of her own kitchen. The kitchen, traditionally the heart of the home, the place she was literally just trying to provide a meal, has been turned into an active hazard zone by an unseen entity. When she tells Bela she needs a grown-up to help, it is immediately followed by screaming. The mother's realization isn't just about a fire hazard anymore. It is a terrifying confrontation with the unknown, physical presence that has been haunting the edges of this entire sequence. The monster is in the room.
Act 4. The intruder looks familiar. Let's talk about the doppelganger.
The father finally wakes up and he delivers this completely terrifying revelation. Somebody was in the house. She looked like you. It's not a stranger with a weapon. It's a doppelganger. The uncanny valley has officially invaded their home. The fear of the doppelganger taps into a deep, primal anxiety. It violently violates our core understanding of uniqueness and identity. Because if the intruder looks exactly like the mother, well, it explains the forgotten breakfast. It explains who Bela saw in the bedroom. It means the foundation of this family hasn't just been breached. It has been replicated and hijacked by something that wears the skin of a loved one.
So I have to look directly at you and ask, who was actually cooking in the kitchen? Take a second to pause and really piece that together. Was it the mother we've been following since she walked through the front door? Or was it the other one? And if there is another one, how do we know the mother we've been watching this entire time is even the real one? It masterfully forces us to doubt the very perspective we've been tethered to. We are now just as lost and just as paranoid as the characters on screen, completely unable to trust the reality being presented to us.
Act 5, trusting the other mommy. A child's acceptance.
Look at this quote from Bela. "You don't have to be scared, mommy. She's nice." Honestly, Bela's terrifying calmness is arguably the most deeply disturbing part of this entire sequence. The mother is frantic, her entire reality is crumbling around her, and her own daughter is casually comforting her about the presence of a horrifying entity. A child's innocent acceptance of the monster amplifies the intense paranoia of the real mother tenfold. Because if your own child accepts the imposter, you are truly, completely isolated. Your one ally in the house has essentially defected to the nightmare.
This right here is the ultimate nightmare of parenthood. It's the crushing realization that your own daughter cannot tell the difference between you, the person who grew her, who loves her, who protects her, and a sinister, empty duplicate. It implies that to the child, the mother is utterly, completely replaceable. That unique bond the mother thought they shared, the whole idea that they were once one person, is proven devastatingly false if the child can so easily accept an exact physical copy. It is a total erasure of the mother's unique value right inside her own home. Which leads us to the climax. Is it really you? Are you tricking me?
The mother's grasp on reality has completely irreparably fractured here. When she screams, "It's me, I'm mom," she isn't just fighting an intruder anymore. She is desperately begging the universe and her own child to validate her very existence. The crescendo of screaming in absolute terror at the end is the literal sound of an identity being entirely erased. She is no longer fighting for her physical life. She is fighting for the right to even exist as herself.
So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. This is a masterclass in psychological terror. It doesn't rely on cheap monsters under the bed or loud supernatural jump scares. It brilliantly uses mundane domestic life, the routine of feeding your child, maternal instinct, and a child's innocent logic to craft a perfectly claustrophobic nightmare. The ultimate betrayal isn't that someone broke into the house, it's that someone broke into the mother's life, and her own family didn't even notice the difference. So I'll leave you with this. How would you react if your child looked at you dead in the eye and casually mentioned that someone else was playing your role? Who would you be if everything that made you, you, was suddenly walking around your kitchen? Thank you for joining me on this deep dive today. I hope this leaves you questioning the very nature of trust, identity, and reality in your own home. Let me know what you think.